Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.
Grit.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise of Grind Morning Show. It is May 26th. It has been, well, a little over a week since Eric and I did a little recording of a couple of things talking about the schedule. But it has been almost 3 weeks since we have done a live show for the Rise of Grind Morning Show. So it's good to be back. Took some much needed time off. Try to get a few things done around the house. Obviously, we had a drama infused time period there, which I'm not going to worry about the drama. If people want to waste their life with that kind of shit, go for it. I have yet to be contacted by anyone that even matters. So we're going to move forward, and just so everybody is very clear, ain't nobody scared, ain't nobody hiding, ain't nobody running, ain't nobody done anything wrong. Well, I didn't. They did. And they're going to find out when that hammer drops today what I mean. And I mean business. So let's just get on to football, because football is what matters. We're into the fun part of the season right now where we get to meet, and greet our Lions and who's doing what this year, who's going to play, how they're going to play, how do they fit into the team, where's the team going. So we have a jam-packed day today. We're probably not going to get to all of it. And it's going to be a bumpy road. It's been a few weeks since we've been on. So we're going to get through a good morning show this morning. I'm glad to see Eric is doing well, and let's bring him in and let's get rocking and rolling right away. Good morning, buddy. How are you?
Morning. How you doing, Will?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm just glad to be back in the saddle this morning. I've been trying to get some stuff done around the house. Did way more drywall than I wanted to do. Patching holes and fixing things before I'm getting the paint rolling. Got a deck to refinish. All that stuff was supposed to happen between the 8th and the 18th, and it didn't. And so now I'm trying to get it done. Now we've got flowers to plant. I mean, it's late spring around here, around the lake, and there's just a lot to do. So a lot for you too. You've had a very busy few weeks yourself. You're telling me, yesterday the Uberlite store is open 7 days a week this year. Which that's huge, man. Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing, what you're about up there in Brimley?
Yeah, a little different this year. So the Uberlite store is open daily from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then on Sundays and Mondays, we're open shortened hours from noon to 2. So this year we're expanding to 7 days a week. And I just put in my order for a brand new building. So it's going to be more than double the size of what I have now. A little more than triple, actually, the size of what I have now. So we'll have a nice, great, big, brand new building by the end of the summer.
That's awesome, man. Expansion and growth is phenomenal, and I'm hoping and praying that you get a busy season this year. I know with gas prices and everything, they're predicting to have a low travel year. But look, you guys can travel in the state of Michigan. It's not that far away. Get your ass up to Brimley, Michigan. Go visit Eric. Get yourself some Uberlite stuff, and and just be part of that culture, man. It's such a fun culture, rock hounding and everything that you do for that community up there and around the country. I mean, around the world, honestly. I mean, Uperlights is kind of gone everywhere. So you had a fun interaction. You were telling me off air before we started. You want to share what your fun interaction was?
Yeah. So I met a guy named Brad. He pulled up to my driveway in the most badass side-by-side I've ever seen in my life. It was a Polaris North Star edition, fully decked. I mean, this thing was probably $50,000-$60,000. Super, super ultra nice, lifted, big giant tires, the whole ball of wax. And he gets out, and he's got a Lions shirt on, a Lions hat on, and he gets to talking to me. He bought a cabin up here, and he's redoing his shower, and he wants to do it with all Uperlight stones. Well, come to find out, he's one of the equipment people for the Detroit Lions, and he has been for like 20 years, him and his brother. And now he's getting his son into it. And he showed me pictures of him and his son on the sidelines at the NFC Championship game and at a bunch of games, and showed me a video of him and Dan Campbell, Dan wishing his wife a happy birthday and giving him a bunch of crap. And come to find out, he's a huge Lions fan himself, but since he's the equipment manager, he gets a lot of stuff, and he might be hooking me up with some stuff from Ford Field. So it's pretty cool. Made a really cool connection yesterday.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It's that 6 degrees of separation, man. It just seems to find you. You never know how close you are to somebody that is important to what you do or what you love, each and every day. And speaking of that, what's important to me, first, y'all do me a favor in the chat. Let me know that audio, video is good. Like I said, it's been a few weeks. Might have a few tweaks to make. But what's important to me is what's behind me. And so I changed up my wall for a couple of reasons. But everything that I do, everything that I'm about, even though I'm not a born and raised, Detroiter, okay, that's not where I'm from. I'm from the west side of the state, born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Live south of Grand Rapids, Michigan now, but I've spent an awful lot of time on the east side of the state as a 4-year-old kid, going to Lions games, visiting my grandfather like every other weekend. He lived in West Bloomfield. And so that's where this whole marriage of Lions and me, started. And like I said, at 4 years old, going to my first game. And so I've heard things, people saying, oh, you haven't been a Lions fan forever. Oh, you don't have, season tickets for 28 plus years. Oh, you just popped on the radar in 2023. I started doing this after cancer, right? I've always been a Lions fan. I've always been following the Lions my entire life. And if anybody can attest to that, I mean, Eric obviously knows. He's met my father. But a lot of people that have seen me in that stadium for years and years and years. Been on the field when I was 21 years old doing punt, pass, and kick because they selected some season ticket holders to do it. So I've been around. But the reason why I do what I do is because of what's behind me. That's the city of Detroit. And so I wanted to create a new wall that embodies everything that I'm about, and that's the city of Detroit, the Detroit Lions. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm doing this. It started out as podutherapy, wanting to grow into, the Cancer Foundation and really start helping, others. And now I'm making other connections. If anything, Eric, I know we talk off air, once in a while about things, but if anything, this whole situation is just, it's kind of given me more life, more, how do I say it? I'm more motivated now than I've ever been before. So now I'm going to take Rocked On Cancer Foundation to $1 million in the next couple of years. And I'm not going to look back. If anything, I'm just going to wave and laugh as I continue to do what's right for people. My biggest question, whenever I see stuff like this, is what are you doing to make your community better? What are you doing to help? Because if you're not, then you can check your ass on the sidelines and stay there. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. The show's going to keep doing what it's doing. Rocked On Cancer Foundation is going to keep on doing what it's doing, and ain't nobody going to stop us. It ain't going to happen. So that's what I'm all about. that's the new wall, and I hope it represents the city of Detroit well. It's not perfect yet, but there's more changes coming. So let's get into the news, man. Unless you have anything else you want to share.
Not much. I just wanted to say one thing. John Desage had something great in the chat. It's crazy that even the diehard Lions fans put up goalposts for other Lions fans. And I had to deal with all that crap about a year or two ago when everybody was like, oh, you came out of nowhere, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, really? I've had Bubbles, the lion tattoo on my right leg since the 1990s. So that's kind of impossible for me to be a Lions fan just the last couple of years.
Bubbles. How did they ever come up with the name Bubbles? I've never even looked into that, but Bubbles, man.
You look at my tattoo and you'll be like, yeah, Bubbles.
Yeah.
It needs to be fixed.
I'm sure it does.
Oh God, the old logo looks so horrible. Oh.
All right, let's get into the number one topic of the last couple of weeks. I know I'm not going to recap 3 weeks, but we're going to go over a few things. Obviously, the biggest chess piece that was moved was Jack Campbell and getting that, that signing done, getting that extension done. A few things happened. I've even heard that my sources have been attacked too, right? But my main source that has deep connections, quite simply told me that the 5th-year option was not going to happen. And that's all in a video. I think it's called the nuclear option from a couple weeks ago. And that when the 5th-year option wasn't picked up, that they were going to look to do a 4 to 5 year deal with Jack Campbell. I was on kind of the side of a 5-year deal, thinking that maybe they try to package all this and roll it into something. But the word is they really wanted a 3-year deal, Jack's camp, because they don't want to extend, too far out to where he can't then just maximize another deal. So 4-year made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense for Jack. It made a lot of sense for the team. And, I think that this really underscores what the organization's commitment is to building this roster, building this team, building a young defensive core, which we definitely have. So it was first reported on May 21st that a superfan, nonetheless, announced Jack Campbell's extension. What a classy move, one, by the Lions, and two, what a foundational move for this Detroit Lions defense. Jack Campbell's exploded onto the scene. He's been everything that we had hoped that he was going to be. That was the first year that I really started doing this, and one of the first drafts that I even spoke about. Jack was my pick, and he was my pick in the 2nd round. I didn't see him going at 18, but he was my pick in the 2nd round to the Lions. He was one of the 5 that I got right in that draft. So I'm glad to see it got done. And Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about the contract, a little bit of details, as minor as there are really available at this point, of Jack Campbell, kind of where does he fit at the top of the scale for linebackers today?
Yeah, so far this is what we know. Jack Campbell signed a 4-year, $81 million contract with the Detroit Lions, including $51.5 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $20.25 million in 2026. Campbell will earn a base salary of $2.7 million, carrying a cap hit of 4.6. So pretty cheap for this year.
Yeah, so still under, I think I heard you say, still under his rookie deal for this year.
Yes.
So next year is going to start the new contract. Now, I guess what we do and what we don't know is the AAV was what, 20.25?
Yes.
So it could be 20.25 next year. I highly doubt it. I would assume that this is going to be a back-loaded contract. It's not going to be a front-loaded contract, simply because the math, right? The math wouldn't math if you were to front-load this contract, especially when you're looking at Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson, soon to be Jahmyr Gibbs, and others, right? These bigger max deals. Jared Goff, massive deal right next year. I think is $69 million, or maybe it's $59 million, somewhere in that range. But it's a big deal. You have like 10 giant contracts on this team, and so to backload it makes more sense to front load it. I would assume that they probably won't have any guaranteed money in that 4th year. They're going to front load the guarantee money. They've given him a big signing bonus. It was what, 51-ish? Did you say 51 million? So great deal for the Lions. I mean, to get him underneath the top end of the contracts, it's kind of what the Lions have done. I mean, when you look at all of the deals that they've done, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown was the most expensive wide receiver for about an hour. And then Jared Goff wasn't the most expensive deal when they signed him. Aiden Hutchinson had the most guarantee, if memory serves me right, but not the biggest overall number. So, I mean, it's just Brad Holmes' way. I mean, it's just what he does with these contracts, that he finds the value, but he also makes sure that the player is paid commensurate to their value. Eric, we haven't seen Jack Campbell, I think, fully unleashed. And we'll talk about that in just a moment too. But I have 5 trigger points with this deal. 1, the Lions signed a core piece, right? Defensive centerpiece. He's now locked up for the next 4 seasons. 2, it's the message, and it's a continuous message that the Lions have been sending. We pay our own, right? This is a culture move. We draft, we develop, we pay. Number 3, it's the cap story. Yes, it's big money, but it fits the long-range plan for the Lions, what they're trying to do. The identity. The defense officially is now built around Jack Campbell. I know that sounds funny because a lot of people will say, well, it's built around Aiden Hutchinson. I think the reason why you say it's built around Jack Campbell is because he truly is the centerpiece of the defense. As the middle linebacker, you are the nucleus of that team. You are the green dot. You are the one that's making the calls. Aiden obviously is just as important, right, as Jack Campbell. But this defense is truly now built around their centerpiece, which is their Mike. And then the 5th most important piece is the locker room. You now have a leader, right, who's been a leader really since day one, but he got more vocal, started bringing those leadership qualities to the table really in year 2. And now that Alex Anzalone is gone, Brad mentioned in a recent podcast, which I think it might have been yesterday, where he said, some of these guys are now going to be like, they're taking the handcuffs off, right? You're taking the training wheels off. You no longer have Alex kind of leading from the front. And even though Jack is still leading through the way that he plays, you now have Jack leading from the front, vocal, calling the plays, and leading by example. Have we even seen the best that Jack Campbell can be? I don't think so. So my first question really to you about this whole thing is, I guess, what was the signal that was sent to you when you heard the signing? And then 2, what did you really think as a fan too? Like, what would it mean to the fans when you see that the Lions go ahead and lock up such an amazing centerpiece that Jack Campbell's going to be?
Well, I think that Jack is part of the most important draft that we had with the Detroit Lions in 23, getting Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, and then you have Sam Laporta and Brian Branch. Now, with the way that they signed Jack Campbell and how much they signed him to, basically $20.25 million a year, how much room is that going to leave for Jahmyr Gibbs? How much room is that going to leave for Sam Laporta and Brian Branch? Is there going to be an odd man out from the 2023 draft? That would be my only question. Did we pay so much for Jack that we're going to have to do the same with Jahmyr, because that's our 2 first rounders, that one of the second rounders we may have to sacrifice?
So you're thinking like what? Like Sam or like
Probably
they're not
Brian
going
Branch.
to, they're not going to sacrifice Gibbs, but Sam and Branch are probably the only 2 that there could be a hiccup with, maybe, unless it's a decent deal. Like I don't see them getting a deal done right now for those guys. I really don't. And I remember Rod Wood saying this past early spring, probably around the combine time, that they wanted to get a deal done with all 4 guys, and they didn't need to see Branch or Sam Laporta play to get those done. I call BS on that. They had to see Aiden play. A lot of people thought that they were going to get Aiden done early in the springtime, and then, oh, no, we'll get him done in the summer. And I said from the outset, there ain't no way that you're bringing a player back from a significant injury and about to sign that player to a record-setting deal and not see him play. So they saw what they needed to see out of Aiden for 7-8 weeks, and they signed him right before the trade deadline. Same thing I think is going to happen here with Sam and Branch. Like, if there's going to be a deal that gets done, I would say that it's going to be, well, for Sam, it could be by week 8, week 10. For Branch, I think it could be week 12, 13, 14, because he's not, expected to be back until like week 8, I think at the very earliest. So it's interesting. It's an interesting, thought, I guess, that could we have a couple of guys that fall on the sword because of an injury? I hate to see that happen, but I think if Brad really values the team and what is most important, it's not just paying a guy for what they've done. You need to pay the guy for what they're about to do, what they're capable of doing. And if that injury in any way could hinder that, then I think you have a problem. Any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I think that fans, including myself, want Brad Holmes to draft so well that we have a problem. And that problem is you're not going to be able to afford all of your draft picks eventually down the road. And I think that is the crossroads that we are coming upon now. And I think it has less to do with injury than it has to do with, if you draft 4 all pros in a single draft in the first 2 rounds, tell me another team that has signed 4 all pros from a single draft. I don't think it's ever happened. So how are you going to get all 4 of them into a manageable space into the salary cap? It's a really good problem to have, but it is still a problem. Because when you look at like Jack Campbell, his contract, and you look at the top 10 linebackers starting next season in 2027, Jack Campbell is going to be the second highest paid AAV of any linebacker in the NFL. And when you look at some of the other contracts we have, same thing. And, sticking with Jack Campbell, you look at 2028, he's still number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look out a couple more years to 2029, he drops to number 3.
That's only with the current contracts too. So you're going to have more linebackers that are going to get paid. So his number is going to incrementally go down, assuming the linebacker contract, history, trajectory, I guess it kind of stays the same, right? It continues to go up. Yeah. So it's a valid point. But you asked a question in there too, which has any team ever drafted 4 all pros in a single draft? So I just asked our buddy over here to help me out. I don't know if this is accurate, but once.
I think it's only ever happened once in the NFL.
Steelers, 1974, Lynn Swann, Jack Lambert, John Stallworth, and Mike Webster. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Only once. Well, we got to get all 4 guys to an all-pro first.
Yes.
They're not all there yet. But all right, let's talk about Gibbs for just a brief moment. So you were looking at something this morning that was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, like 4 or 3 possible contract options. And like I was very vocal about Gibbs' contract when I did that nuclear, video. Mm-hmm. When I said I think he's going to be the highest paid. So I'm interested into hearing what this publication had mentioned about Jahmyr Gibbs. Where's this contract going to land?
Yeah, so it has 3 possibilities: option A, option B, and option C. Option A is we get a team-friendly deal and we come in under the Saquon number. So that is a 4-year extension worth $76 million and $19 million per year. So a little less than Saquon Barkley. And then option B is we match Saquon Barkley and we give him a 4-year extension worth $84 million with $52 million guaranteed and $21 million per season. So just a little bit more than Jack got. But then there's option C, which I think is the most likely option as Gibbs resets the market. And that's a 4-year deal worth $92 million, which personally I think may be closer to $100 million, with an annual value of $23 million per year and $65 million guaranteed. Could you imagine if we reset the bar and give him somewhere between 92 and 100 million for 4 years? that's where I just don't know about Sam Laporta and Brian Branch and their contracts and how we're going to make it fit if we have to reset the market with Jahmyr Gibbs.
So I think the question in there was, can we make it work if they do have to reset the market with Jahmyr Gibbs? I think anything's possible. And I think that what we've seen from Brad Holmes and the rest of that financial team over there in Allen Park is they're going to make it possible. And we've already seen, where Jared Goff was willing to give up some money, taking in a big bonus to alleviate the cap, to allow some things to happen. You're still going to have multiple players that are going to be eligible to do that. That same kind of a deal, take a big lump sum and, kind of push the rest out over a couple years. That gives the Lions the leeway. And as expected, the NFL is supposed to grow at roughly a 10% clip every single season. And if that's the case, then I would say, yeah, I do think it's possible. I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it, but at the same time, man, I think that you're going to end up losing some players that you don't want to lose. And Brad Holmes was vocal about that over the last couple of weeks. At some point, there's just going to be some players that you can't re-sign. It's fiscally not responsible. Financially, the numbers just may not be there. It doesn't mean that you don't like the player. And so that, I guess, leads me to another off-topic question. Does Brad Holmes make a trade for one of these players? He's kind of up against the clock now because Brian Branch and Sam Laporta both in their final season, so you really can't make a trade for them next year unless you pick up some sort of a franchise tag on either one of the players, which is possible. Once Jahmyr Gibbs gets his deal done, then the franchise tag, I think, would belong to either one of those two players as a potential. And so if you pick up a franchise tag, then you could tag and trade. And I wouldn't be opposed to that as long as you get the right compensation back. I think that it's not easy to find a player like Branch. It's not easy to find a player like Sam Laporta. But at the same time, can you find a player that is commensurate, right? Can you find a player that can help other players get better at their position? I'm a little bit worried about, the long-term, Kirby Joseph issue. I'm worried about the long-term with Brian Branch and his Achilles. Is he going to lose a step? Then at that point, I think, yeah, it's more about doing right by the team than it is just keeping the player because, you want to draft, develop, and repay your own. Look, they want to keep Branch. They want to keep Laporta. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not the end of the world. I think that we'll pivot. We'll be just fine. We'll find another player. We'll see what happens in the draft next year. Maybe it's time to bring in another tight end. I would have loved to have seen him do it this year. I expected him to do it this year. They didn't. And then, they've already brought in some corners and some nickels and some other players that can play multiple positions. So I think that they're prepared for it. The question is, what happens when they come back this year? And are they able to play, to the same level that they were? And if they are, then they'll probably still be around in 2027. Speaking of that, the path to the roster, we'll talk about that in just a moment. And that's going to be talking about the rookie class, who's going to have an impact right away, why or why not. But I want to play a clip here from Colin Cowherd. The question is this, Eric, and I think we both would probably agree on this. Is Jared Goff still the most disrespected quarterback in the league? What do you think?
1,000,000%.
I think so too.
I have been watching a few things here and there and seeing all these lists that people put out, their top 10 quarterbacks or their top 15 quarterbacks for the 2026 season. And Jared Goff is always at the bottom or not even on the list. And since 2021, he's been a top 5 quarterback. In the last 3 years, he's thrown more touchdowns than any other quarterback not named Baker Mayfield. So him and Baker Mayfield are tied, I think, with 65 touchdowns in the last 2 years. So it's complete disrespect. And if Goff has even a semblance of an offensive line this year, we're not going to be a top 5 offense. We're going to be a top 2 offense. In my opinion.
I like where your head's going. All right. So which rookies have the best opportunity to make in impact in 2026. But first, let's listen to what Colin Cowherd had to say about old Jared Goff.
Number 9, the most disrespected player in the league, Jared Goff. All he does is win. He's the only quarterback in the league, the only one. 4 straight seasons with 4,000 plus passing yards. And strangely, never misses a start. He and Caleb Williams, they don't get hurt, ever. High school, college, pros, they don't get hurt. I've seen him get ragdolled in college and the pros. He doesn't miss starts. Dad was a pro baseball player, got some good genetics. Dude just takes shots and is never hurt.
Okay. Absolutely, he's still the most disrespected. Now, I probably should have put a little context with what this episode was about with Colin Cowherd, but he was kind of jumping all over the place. This was his top 10 quarterbacks for 2026. Jared Goff coming in at number 9, and he was behind Herbert. I don't remember if Caleb Williams is in the top 10 or not. Honestly, I can't remember. But Jared Goff at 9? I mean, he made the case. He made the case for Jared Goff already to be in the top 5 conversation. Look, Patrick Mahomes is coming off a major injury. He shouldn't be anywhere sniffing in the top 10. He put Joe Burrow, I believe, in the top 5. But he just said 4 straight seasons with 4,000 plus yards. The guy doesn't get hurt. He doesn't miss a start, which that's true and untrue because he missed 3 starts in 2021. Hasn't missed a start since. That is an Iron Man if I've ever met one before. Jared Goff is just so durable. I'll never forget that one play in the Seattle game where he got absolutely smoked. He was hiding the ball so well, right? The fake was so good. He got smoked. And it was like 4 seconds after the play. So the fact that he bounced up from that and kind of laughed it off, the fact that he got, hit in the head, was that the same game that he got smoked in that? No, that was
Washington.
That was Washington. So yeah, he got smoked in the dome piece, and he just pops right up. Yeah, he went out for a couple of plays or a play, and he pops right back in the game. The dude is super durable, but 4,000 plus yards, 44-38 and 22, 45-75 and 23, 46-29 and 24, and 45-64 last season. So he still has not had his best passing year ever since 2018 in LA. But I'll say this. He is still beating every quarterback in Chicago. The last 4 years, he has more 4,000-yard throwing seasons than any quarterback ever in Chicago through 100 years of their history or however many years it's been. I think that says something. And no, I don't think Caleb Williams is going to hit 4,000 again this year, but we'll save that for another day. So is he the most disrespected? Absolutely. Hopefully this year he can find a little bit of grace and just, you know what, disrespect me all you want. I'm taking this team to the Super Bowl. And when we win a Super Bowl, you can still disrespect me all you want because they still will. There's nothing he can do right. There's not enough that he can do right. I think to change a lot of people's mind in the media for whatever reason.
If you remember last preseason, before the season started, Benedict Johnson got a new job with the Chicago Bears. And him and Caleb Williams sat down and they had a discussion. And one of their goals was to get Caleb Williams to a 70% completion percentage. Guess who is nowhere close to a 70% completion percentage on the season?
If memory serves me, Eric, isn't it like 53%?
Horrible.
It's like 52 to 54, somewhere in that range.
But he can run around like a chicken with his head cut off.
Mm-hmm. Get a lucky duck every once in a while.
And he can throw a ball up to no one and have someone come down with it in the playoffs against the Rams. He had the most incredible throw ever that he was just throwing it away. And the guy comes down with a touchdown pass. Now, did the Rams lose that game? I don't think they did. But that play sticks in everybody's mind, and that puts Caleb Williams as a top 10 quarterback in all of these podcasters and, talking heads, they all put him way up on this pedestal because of one play last year. And everybody remembers it because everybody was watching it, because it was the only game on and it was a playoff game. So I don't understand the Caleb Williams love and the disrespect for Jared Goff. And at the same time, it's the same thing with Jordan Love. Jordan Love gets all this love, and I'm sure that Jordan Love was top 5 on Cowherd's list there. But you want to know what? You want to know something that no other quarterback in the entire NFL did last year? No other quarterback other than Jordan Love lost their last 5 games of the season. So I'm going to put that into context, and I'm going to put that on my list. So one of these days we'll have to do our top 10 quarterback list. And I can guarantee you that Jordan Love is not going to make my list as a top 10 quarterback, and neither is Caleb Williams.
Not yet. I mean, they look, having a year where, and we'll get into schedule in a minute. Like that's one of my favorite outtakes by Colin Cowherd. But we're going to get into the schedule in just a moment. Like, the schedule really matter. And so last year, with them having a last place schedule, they did some things that they wouldn't normally have been able to do when you're playing a first, rate schedule. And if anyone ever even thinks that you can put the Chicago Bears on the same pedestal as the Lions from a roster construction standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint, just like you said, he can run around, chicken with his head cut off. You get a lucky duck. He's basically completed 4 or 5 Hail Marys last year that kind of saved his ass. But outside of that, he's not doing the consistency, right? Or he's not doing the consistent thing. He's not completing passes at a clip of at least 65% completion rate, which is about league average. He's in the bottom 50s. You can't win football games against great defenses and good offenses, with a 52 or 53% completion percentage. You just can't. Against the bottom barrel, sure, you're going to get away with some. And if you have a halfway decent defense, they're going to save you a few games too. It's much different in Detroit. Jared is one of the most consistent, accurate quarterbacks in the league. And when our defense is healthy, it's one of the best defenses in the league. And it just got a lot better. Let's talk about the rookies for just a moment here. The path to the roster is getting tighter and tighter and tighter in Detroit. Every year that they draft, it's another year of you're asking the question, where do they fit? Where are they going to play? How many snaps are they going to get? Are they going to be impact players? Are these special teamers? And in this year's draft, I was kind of on that hold on. Anyway, in this year's draft, I was kind of considering the fact that if you get 2 to 3 max really good players this year, that's about all this roster has to give. Outside of that, breeding the competition and forcing players to compete, and then also forcing your way onto the roster, forcing your way to be seen, that's where the rest of these players are going to have to win their battles and find a way onto the roster from a consistency standpoint there too, where they're, suiting up for the games, getting some time in the games. Not every single one of these rookies is going to play this year. At least I don't foresee that right now. I think if everyone stays healthy, especially Levi Onwuzurike, I think that really changes the conversation on the defensive line. But let's talk about Blake Miller. Blake Miller drafted in the first round. What is the one thing that Dan and Brad have always told us, whether it was Aaron Glenn or Calvin Shepard too, even Ben Johnson during this time, is just because you were drafted somewhere and just because you are the highest paid guy doesn't mean you're going to play. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a starter. You still have to go out there and win your job. And Brad was on Good Morning Football, and I'm going to bring in the whole 12-minute interview for everybody this morning. We're going to listen to the audio portion of it. And you're going to hear what he has to say about some of these players. So I might take a few words out of his mouth. Blake Miller, I couldn't believe when, I heard this. I mean, I guess I can. He's competing with Larry Borom. And that's exactly what what Brad just said. in this interview. He's not coming in to be the starter. He's competing to be the starter with Larry Borom. And I'm not surprised. It could just be, the GM, just GMs, talking out of their ass, right? Just like coach speak, you got GM speak. I don't think so. I think that they want to see Blake Miller be the starter. My odds-on favorite is that he'll be the starter in 2026. But they brought in these guys during free agency to all be starters. They brought in these guys to come in and compete. And that's exactly what they're going to do. But being drafted at number 17 overall is not guaranteeing Blake Miller a starting position. So, Eric, if you were to give it a percentage, do you think that Blake is a starter in 26? If so, why? And then what percentage do you give him over Larry Borom to start the year?
As of right now, it should be game 1, 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Should not be anything else. Should be 50-50. Him and Larry Borom. Larry Borom was a starter for the Miami Dolphins last year, and he had a pretty decent season.
On a bad team.
Yes. So if you are going to give up what the Lions did for Borom, would they give him $3 million, 3 or 5?
I think it was like 5. Not much.
5 million,
right?
Yeah. But you're going to give up that kind of capital, and you're going to draft somebody in the first round. That is an absolute open competition, or it should be. It should be, all right, guys, here you go. This is our playbook. This is how we want you to do it. Soak up everything, because Borom's going to have to come in. He's going to have to learn from Hank Fraley. And so is Blake Miller. And everything I see is that Blake Miller and Hank Fraley are hitting it off pretty well. So I truly believe that it should be a 50-50 split right now on snaps, on learning the playbook, and on who should be the starter day one. Now, once we get to the first game of the season, all bets are off. Things are going to change. I would guess probably an 80-20%, 80% for Miller, 20% for Borom. I think Borom's going to end up being one of the better backup right tackles in the league. But if you get Blake Miller in there for a game or two and he's struggling, don't think for a second that Dan and Hank Fraley will not pull Blake Miller for Borom if he's struggling through the first couple of games.
I would definitely agree with all that. I do think that there's competition. I mean, not only we hearing it from Dan and Brad, but I think it's just right, for a rookie, I've said this every year that you're going to expect some level of development. And I know that seems like, sticker shock to some people where, what do you mean? You just drafted a guy in the first round. What do you mean they have to develop? Look, these are rookies. And every year when people are pounding the table to bring this guy in or bring that guy in, and he's going to help our defense or he's going to help our offense, and it's going to be an immediate, impact. Look, it's not always that way. A lot of rookies take some time. A lot of first rounders take some time. You might have a third or a fifth rounder that pops a little bit early, and they're able to, kind of weasel their way onto the roster through hard work and being competitive. But not every first round pick works out, and not every first round pick is able to start, week one, especially when you're trying to supplant, somebody that's been there for a while. But that's not the case, here in Detroit. In Detroit, you've got a total makeover going on. Penei Sewell's going to the left side. He's going to take some time. Hopefully it's just like riding a bike for him, but he's going to take a little bit of time. He's going to take a few lumps probably early in the season. That's going to give some fans sticker shock. I guarantee you that. But for Blake, man, I see the guy coming in and winning the job. I do. But I think I'm kind of with you on this one, where it's more of like a 50-50 split right now, and these guys are going to go at it. And we're not going to know who a starter is probably until, that end of the preseason, when we finally see the roster for what it is. I think that's when we'll find out. I think up until that point, this is an open competition. That's going to make these guys better. And I think to your other point, if Blake is struggling a little bit, Borom will be right in there. I don't think that Dan is going to, stick to his guns with, okay, we're going to put this player in we're just going to let them kind of sink or swim. Not this year. I don't think that that's the way that the Lions are operating this year. They've totally revolutionized everything that they're doing. Everything. So if you think that they're just going to throw a player in and say sink or swim, I don't buy it. I think that they're going to let these guys go in, and if they do sink, someone else is going to come in with floaties and hopefully stabilize the unit. And if that doesn't work, Brad's going to go out and find somebody. I don't think that they're sticking to this. We drafted you, we got to play you. We picked you up in free agency, we got to play you. All that, you can throw it out the window. I think that they're looking to win this year, and they're going to do everything in their power to make that happen. To your point, though, on Hank Fraley, I also heard kind of the same grumblings that Miller's already been working with Hank Fraley, obviously on the offensive line, and during his first week. They've been doing well. Blake said, his time with Fraley has been amazing. Miller was also part of the rookie, arrival during that whole equipment process and really got pushed into playing early with the guys, right? There was no rookie, mini camps or anything this year. They just pushed them right in with the vets. It's time to learn. And I think that's kind of the sink or swim mentality to a degree, where we need to see what you're made of. But I at no point do I think that Miller is just going to come in and be the starter on day one. He's going to earn it. And when he earns it, he's not going to let it go. I have full confidence in Blake Miller. He's going to be a hell of a football player for us. Definitely my second overall tackle out of this draft. And speaking of tackles, Eric, did you hear over the last couple of weeks the trade rumors and what the Lions are trying to do at number 10 with the Giants?
Yeah. But it wasn't with the Ravens, and it fell through.
There was one with the Ravens, and then there was another one. Let me see if I can look this up real quick. There was another one, and I'm only bringing this up. I should have prepared for it, but there was another one that it was talked about them moving up to 10.
That was in the second round.
Was it the second round?
Yeah, it was the second round because they were willing to give up. Excuse me, their second round pick, their fourth, their fifth, and next year's third to move up. And instead they ended up sticking and picking with Derek Moore instead.
No, not Derek Moore. We moved up for Derek Moore. You talking second round or you talking fourth round?
We were in the second round. We were talking about moving up with the Giants even further.
Yeah, we ended up moving up, 3 spots? To get more?
Yeah.
We ended up moving up 3 spots. Okay, so there was one report that said that the Lions are trying to move up to the Rams, not the Giants, the Rams.
Yeah.
And then it was when Caden Proctor went off the board, obviously that wasn't going to happen. I think same thing with the Ravens. And when Caden Proctor was off the board, wasn't going to happen. So backing out of that deal brings forth the question. Who was the number one target for the Lions? Well, all signs, all sources are pointing to the fact that Caden Proctor was the target for the Lions in round 1. Mm-hmm. And when he was gone, he was gone. And then the Lions had no reason to really move around or do anything. They expected, Blake Miller to be the next best option for them, and he was going to be there at 17. So it's just interesting the type of player that they were going after. You're going after the biggest, in my opinion, the best, someone with probably the highest ceiling. Blake Miller's kind of the opposite of that. I think that Blake Miller has a hard cap on his ceiling, but I think he has a much higher floor than it's. I know it's tough for me to say that about Caden Proctor, but I think that Caden was still pretty raw in some areas. There's nothing wrong with saying that, but I'll say that Blake is coming in with a higher floor. I mean, 54 starts doesn't come easy. Being an Ironman like that is hard to do. He's going to come in and be able to set the tone, but he's going to be a little rough in the run game, and hopefully they get that stuff figured out. But his pass pro is phenomenal. You're not going to have to worry about pass pro on the right side of this offensive line, and even if you do, like I've always said, Jared's going to see it and or feel it, but he'll definitely be able to see it. Panay on the other side, I think that gives him the security that he needs. Let's talk about Derek Moore, since you brought him up.
Sure.
Where does Derek fit into the rotation right away? Do you see him coming in and being an immediate impact player from day one?
I do not.
Hmm.
By all reports that I've seen, the Lions are very high on DJ Wanham. They think that he is going to have one heck of a bounce back season and that they can bring Derek Moore along slowly. They don't have to throw him to the Wolves. Now, if he has a breakout in training camp or something, that's a different story. If he takes the job and wins it over DJ Wanham, but I just like with Larry Borum, I think that DJ Wanham is going to have one heck of a battle on his hands with Derek Moore. And I think that one's going to be a little muddier. I think that one, you don't have to have Derek Moore be the bona fide starter on the right side opposite Hutch. It can be a rotation between him and DJ Wanham and a multitude of other players, because what did Brad do this year? He loaded up on the defensive side of the ball. He really did. He's got all these edge players. He's got all these defensive line players. He got all these corners. And he's not going to get caught with his pants down, like I said before. So I think the same thing with the edge position. He's not going to get caught with his pants down this year with the edge position. And I don't think they're going to put all their eggs in one basket. And I don't think they have to. So I think DJ Moore and Wanham are going to be more of a 1-2 punch, where Blake Miller and Larry Borum may end up being just Blake Miller in the end as the bona fide starter.
So the one thing that I haven't really dug into yet is Derek Moore's special teams ability. I'm not so sure that he's going to play a ton of special teams, just like Aiden doesn't. I don't foresee that. But at the same time, I really haven't uncovered anything that tells me that he is a good special teams player. Now, there's another player that we drafted this year that is, a couple of players actually, that will be. But I think that when you look at a first-year impact from any player, it's always special teams is the first route, right? If you're in a crowded room, you have to find a way, to make it work. So embracing special teams as their quickest route is not only beneficial to the team, but I think it's meaningful for the player to be able to show their team, hey, look, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Put me on the field. I want to win. I'm trying to think back to there was an interview with Derek Moore. I just can't remember if he said that he wants to play special teams or he's looking forward to. I can't remember. Do you remember that interview or no?
No, I did not.
I don't remember it either. But anyway, I think that when you look at the players that are really bringing that immediate impact on special teams, we'll talk about Kendrick Law and as well as Jimmy Rolder. I think both of those players are going to give the Lions immediate, meaningful snaps, on special teams. But as far as Derek Moore, what I'm seeing for him is no different than I think what Brad Holmes has said and others. But right when he was drafted, one of my biggest things for Aiden going into the draft is find somebody to not replace Aiden necessarily. Find someone to give him a damn break. Right now, we've heard Calvin Shepard say that Aiden doesn't want to come out of the game. You ask him to come out of the game, he doesn't come out of the game. So he ends up putting himself out there for 95+% of the snaps. That's nobody's fault but his own, right? And now the Lions have an opportunity where you have a guy like Derek Moore who's going to be able to give Aiden a break. And if Derek proves to be better in the run game, well, now you might see, 10 snaps a game that Aiden's not on the field, which is significant. That might drop his snap load down to 87%, 90%, somewhere in that range. And I think that's exactly what the Lions are missing. It wasn't so much the guy on the other side. It's the guy that could back him up is who the Lions are missing. And that's what they got. They got a guy that he can set an edge. He can get after the quarterback. He's actually pretty good in open field tackling too, which is not a prerequisite for an edge. Like, that's not their number one job, right? You leave that up to the corners, the safeties, and linebackers. However, I think that Derek Moore is going to give the Lions exactly what they're looking for. Give Aiden a break And then when you need him on the other side, you can put him in sub-rush situations. He can rush from the outside. He can rush from the inside. There's a lot that I think you can do with him that is going to give this team, I think, a big boost on the defensive line. But to your point, DJ Wanham, like he's no slouch himself, man. This guy can play ball. And I think that when you look at the combination of the assets that the Lions now have, they have exactly what they need. They have, Peyton Turner, who, in my opinion, is exactly like a Marcus Davenport style. The big end, the can crusher, the guy that's going to slam the box shut on early downs. Then you have the DJ Wanham, who's going to play a little bit quicker. He's definitely going to be a rusher and getting after the quarterback on third downs. So if you're rotating, a Turner in who's better in the run game than other players on this team, if he's in on first down, if Aiden's in on first down, I'd be surprised, depending on the game, depending on, what their run game looks like. But putting in players now that you have designated to cover the run snaps, and then you have guys that are designated to cover the pass snaps. And between the two, they may not get a ton of snaps overall. Aiden's still going to get his share, but you kind of see where I'm going with that. Like, you're going to have guys that are rested into the fourth quarter. When you're going deep into a season, those early games in the first 4, 6, 8 weeks, that is what's going to give you the opportunity to go further into the season with that player, and they're not gassed. We've looked at the schedule. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity for the Lions to run out of energy because they've got a pretty tight schedule, especially around Thanksgiving again, coming, back from Germany, and then, they go into a Thursday night. I mean, there's just not a lot of time, right? So now you have guys that are going to be recovered. You're going to have 6 guys I think the Lions are going to keep on the edge, and you're probably going to have 5, maybe 6 guys they're going to keep on the defensive line. I call this the hockey shift, and I didn't get into that video like I promised because we had all that BS that happened. I see hockey lines coming into Detroit, just not for the Red Wings. It's going to be for the Lions. You're going to have an entire unit come in, an entire unit come out when they get an opportunity to rotate. And if that vision that I see happening, if that comes to fruition, you're going to see a team that is going to be able to come in and stay fresh and stay healthy throughout this entire season. Health is the big word. And I can only imagine what it's going to do for them. I mean, it's going to boost their ego, right? I mean, they're going to have so much more energy. They're not going to know what to do with it. And that's exactly what we've been missing is players. There's a difference between being deep and being deep, right? The Lions are the deepest I've ever seen. This is better than last year. It's better than the year before where I thought that we were going to be the deepest ever in last season. It's even deeper. This is going to be a fun team to watch. Jimmy Rolder. Lions picked him up in the, was that 4th round?
Yes, indeed. Pick 18, number 118 overall in the 4th round.
So Jimmy Rolder is a player that has already been coveted as a 4-way special teamer. And same thing with Kendrick Law. He's also been coveted, or at least given the opportunity to be a 4-way, special teamer. And I think that is very impactful for both those players. I don't think that either one of those players has an immediate, how do I say this? They're not going to affect the roster snaps from the guys in front of them immediately. I think that Malcolm Rodriguez is going to hold his own. I really do. I think that Jimmy Rolder is going to take a little bit of time, but where he's going to have his biggest impact is playing on special teams. And he's a damn good special teamer. And not only that, he's a damn good tackler. He's a really good open field tackler. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen for him this season. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen for Kendrick Law. I mean, a guy that was not on my radar ever. I mean, Brad Holmes said he wasn't even on his radar until 2024, and then he fell off the radar a little bit and then popped on the radar in 2025. Like, oh, that's that guy I saw in Alabama. And not only can he be, a return specialist, but Brad's talking about him being a gunner on the defensive side of football. So on, kicks and punts, being a gunner. And man, like, I'm excited to see how he really expands his role this year. But you want to talk about someone that, what was he averaging? Like 9-10 yards a yak per play. pure gadget guy, that's where I'm really excited to see what he can do there too. Is on the offensive side of the football, how they're going to utilize him, and are they going to utilize him as a running back? A little bit here or there could be interesting too. But those are the two guys that I think are going to have the most immediate impact on day one. Is from a special teams perspective. We know that the Lions covet all three phases of the game, and without special teams, which has been probably quietly one of their better units that we've had in a long time, but a unit that has also flipped the field so many times and given the Lions extremely good field position both ways, they need more this year, and they're going to get more out of Rolder and Kendrick Law. What do you think about those two players?
With Kendrick Law, I was so disappointed on draft day. Was not what I wanted to pick at round 5, pick 28. Just was not the guy that
I think we were still both hammering for safety.
Yes, I really wanted a safety, and we didn't pick up a safety in the draft. We didn't take a single one, and I wanted backups for Branch and Kirby because we need some insurance. And Kendrick Law, when you look at his wide receiving stats, his average depth of target is 3 yards past the line of scrimmage. Most of his passes, if not all of them, were behind the line of scrimmage last year playing for Kentucky. And it just didn't impress me. So this kid has a long way to go to get me to go out and buy one of his jerseys. I'm telling you right now, he's going to have an all-pro special teams season for me to get on board with the Kendrick Law pick. So could he do it as a kick returner? Sure. Could he do it as a gunner? Sure. But as a wide receiver, do we really need a fifth, sixth wide receiver that can just be a gadget guy?
Absolutely.
Just a gadget guy?
I know I don't think he's going to be just a gadget guy, and I don't want to cut you off, but I think you're missing one very important piece to this. And this is just me speaking freely. You know who we have as an offensive coordinator?
Drew Pitt.
Do you know what he is like world renowned for? It's better than Ben Johnson. Gadget
play
plays.
Action pass.
The gadget plays. That is what he is known for. Now, he wasn't able to dip into his bag, reportedly, okay, or allegedly, however you want to say it. He was not able to dip into his bag of tricks as often in Arizona because they didn't have the damn players. But not only did they not have the players that they did have were injured. He was missing like 5 out of the 7 or 8 main players in last year's team. So, everyone went down. Everyone was injured. All he had left was Marvin Harrison at times and Trey McBride. So I'll say this, man. Having Drew Petzing, you're going to see some plays that I hate. Right? What are the number one plays that I hate? I hate the hitch route. I can't stand it. I don't like the bubble screens. You're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of that with Kendrick Law. They're going to utilize him like a Deebo Samuel is exactly what I'm seeing out of this player. It still has to come to fruition. But the point still remains is we have one of the best natural play callers to dial up these gadget plays. I hate to call them a trick play. To me, it's more of just a gadget play. I know there's a difference. Maybe we could define that later, but point being, I think that's the piece that you could be missing. I think that this is a Drew Petzing player. Like, this is a guy that he probably wanted to, simply because if you can take a ball from the 2-yard line 11 yards or 9 yards, who doesn't want that? Especially when you have everybody downfield blocking, and that's another thing. And again, I didn't mean to cut you off. Kendrick Law is known as being one of the best downfield pass blockers. Do you know where the Lions ranked last year in pass blocking? Do you remember? It was bad.
14th?
Keep going.
28th.
Pretty damn close. We were ranked, I think it was 31 or 32. We were terrible. And so that is, What's funny is because you keep hearing from people like, oh, Jamo's so good as a downfield blocker. Jamo admitted after the season he was too light. He admitted after the season he wasn't strong enough. He admitted after the season he was getting bumped off the line. So if you're getting bumped off the line, it doesn't matter what you can do downfield because he didn't get there, right? And if you're not strong enough, then it doesn't really matter what you're doing downfield because you can't hold the block. Not saying that he can't. Jamo's done it before. He's going to do it again. The point is we went from being one of the best pass blocking units in the league to one of the worst. Like, that's not good. And so they're bringing these guys in that fit that mold. You know, they're bringing guys in that can block downfield. And so imagine using this little gadget guy. He's not so little, but Kendrick Law, that could be faking something across the middle, and then he's downfield blocking, and then here comes Gibbs, right? Or here comes, the pass across the middle to Jamo. And he's already out there blocking with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that those are the types of plays that I'm looking forward to. Is not so much the downfield, which I do want to see more of this year, but it's that 5 to 8 yard route where you can get 30 out of it because you've got the right players, doing the right thing at the right time. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll see with old Kendrick Law. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of deal. I just think at round 5, pick 28, there were other players that filled more of a need at safety and corner than Kendrick Law, a 5th wide receiver. So for me, I just have to wait and see. But
I can appreciate that for sure.
Special teams, I think I think everyone out of this draft class that is not a 1st or 2nd round pick is going to have to play special teams. If you want to carve out a role, you are going to be a role player. You are not going to be a starter. I only see 2 potential starters in this draft, and that's the first 2. Everyone else is going to have to work their way up to being a starter, and the odds are stacked against most of the other ones to become the eventual starter on this Detroit Lions team, because we have one hell of a core and you are going to have one hell of a time trying to break this roster.
Speaking of that, like, the core is thick. And that is also something that I mentioned prior to the draft. Is I kept talking about the number 20, and it's not Barry Sanders. It's the fact that we have a legit core on this team that was 20 men deep.
Yep.
It is not very often that you see a team that has that many players that are all really good. A lot of them have gotten big paychecks, and I think all but one have been drafted, and that one is Jared Goff. That's pretty impressive. And to think that we just added even more players to that pot, and even more players that are going to continue to grow and become core football players themselves. I mean, I see probably 3 players out of this draft that'll be core players pretty quickly, and you might see 4 or 5. And when I say core, it's not just starters. Like, you've got core, backups, like backups that are really good, and you're not expecting a huge drop off, between the backup and the starter, but someone that is durable, right? Someone that can do their job at a much, different rate or a better rate than maybe the starter can in certain areas of their game, like tackling, for instance. You really need a good tackler on the, in the second level, like Jimmy Rolder is on some of those rundowns. And you might see him in some of those sub packages where they're able to get Jimmy Rolder doing some different things. I don't think he's going to rush the passer ever, but I think he's going to have some pretty big responsibilities early. He may not see the field a ton, but I think when he's in there, like, you're not going to see his name popping up in a bad way. I think that Jimmy Rolder is going to affect his team in a positive way. Same thing with Kendrick Law too. I mean, I am so excited to see his ceiling. His floor is kind of low right now. He's got a long way to go. He's still pretty raw. And so I can totally appreciate where you're coming from, that you got to see it to believe it. Well, he doesn't have a ton of tape that makes you really see anything different. In all of his tape, he's doing the same damn thing. He's just getting yak. And man, when he turns it on, he turns it on. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where they all end up. Give the rest of my notes out here. A couple more players I want to talk about. And in a minute, we're going to get into the top 20. So we talked about Jack, talking about this rookie path right now. We're going to talk about schedule matters, and then we've got Brad Holmes. If we get to moments in time, we'll get to it. We'll see. Real quickly, Keith Abney, drafted 157. Now, to your point, to my point, we wanted a safety. Brad has mentioned that the safeties that they wanted, they went just before they picked. And I think I know who it was. I'm sure I'll find out at some point over the next couple of weeks. Now that I'm back in the saddle, I'm going to start reaching out to my sources and see, what they've heard post-draft. What they can kind of confirm with some of the players that maybe they didn't take, why. But I think it's a lot of the players that went ahead of them. And Brad Holmes mentioned that it's not that they didn't want a safety. It was just like with other players, like the edge, and you'll hear him say that. It just didn't line up. And the players that they wanted were gone. And they also didn't view the safety position as a very deep position this year. So where they were picking in the 5th round, it just didn't make sense, to them. But there were some of the players that I didn't think made sense to them anyway. So Abney, I think he's in sleeper mode. I really do. I think that this is a guy that might have the cleanest early defensive pathway to getting some snaps. Now, he's going to have to beat out some guys. He's going to have to beat out a McCreary. He's going to have to beat out an Izzian. It's going to be very tough to beat out a DJ Reed. That's not going to happen. And I don't think he's really going to compete with Terrion Arnold, at least not right away, assuming that Terrion has his head screwed on straight this year. And I really believe that nickel corner is probably his immediate path. I mean, that's why they really brought him in. But this is a position on this team that the Lions have brought in multiple free agents. They can all play the nickel spot. And I think that if he carves out a starting role somehow, that's where it is. And then maybe it's sub packages. Maybe he's just going to develop a starting role to some sub packages. But he's also somebody else that is going to play a lot of special teams. Abney played mostly outside at Arizona State. But with his physicality and his skill set, I think that you can see him rotate inside fairly easily. And whether that's inside outside or inside at the nickel slot, I think he's going to be able to do both just fine. Why? Because he is a little bit shifty. He is a little bit twitchy. The difference is when you're inside, your head's it's kind of spinning. There's a lot of action going on in the trash heap right there. Can he handle it? I think that's the biggest hurdle he's going to have to jump this year, is being able to handle the trash in the NFL. And if he gets it, I think the production backs it up. I think what he did in college, the guy's an absolute ball menace. I mean, he's getting his hands on the ball, whether he's peanut punching the ball out or snagging an interception, whatever it is, the guy just does it. 21 passes defensed over 25 starts. I mean, damn near a pass defense in every game, right? 5 interceptions over that same stretch. And he was also cited by the Athletic that opposing quarterbacks only completed 44.4% of throws targeting him in 2025. And that was the 4th best in all of the FBS among all corners with at least 60 snaps, which is kind of a low bar. But that's a lot of players, right? Just 60 snaps. That's a ton of players that he's being weighted against. So not empty stats at all. I think that this is a guy that can play. And what's funny is I second guessed myself, Eric. Do you remember, I think it was the first night when we were in Indy, 2 guys in a fern, first show, and I brought up Keith Abney, or was it the second night that I brought up Keith Abney?
You're asking the guy with the worst memory in the world.
Yeah, and I know my memory's for crap right now too, for other reasons, which which I haven't shared. But anyway, I brought up Keith Abney, and I said, this is the guy you got to put your finger on. This is the guy you need to watch. And if I can remember, I even want to say that there was a link to the Lions back then. I just can't remember what I said. But either way, it's in the damn video, or it's in the old live stream. I mentioned Keith Abney for multiple reasons, but it was because of who he was as a player. And what I was seeing out of him, there was a link to him. I just can't remember which one of my sources told me that there was a link to Detroit. Either way, I really liked the dude. And then I kind of fell away from him. Even though that there was a link there, I fell away from him. I some of the things that I saw, I was less and less and less impressed by. Huge mistake to second guess my gut. Because when I watch film, that's it. The film is it. I don't care what anybody else says. And I second guess myself. And then the Lions go and pick him up. So how fitting, is that I had my eyes on the guy early and they go and pick him up. So he does everything that I thought if he does everything that I thought he would be able to do, this is such a sleeper pick by the Lions. What do you think about Keith Abney?
Well, as far as ceiling goes, this kid might have the highest ceiling of any of our draft picks.
100%.
And listen, so all the consensus boards had him at 66, and he didn't go until 157 to the Lions. So I don't know what the reason was for his dramatic fall. The only knock on the kid that I can see is that he has a tendency for grabbing receivers in man coverage, and he's going to have to work at that at the next level. Well, what do the Lions run more than anyone? Man coverage. So he's going to have to work on not being so grabby, kind of like Terrion Arnold has had to work on not being so grabby in man coverage. So Keith Abney, man, this kid could end up being the third player that actually works out to be a bona fide starter for the Detroit Lions. Could he be the replacement for Ennis Rakestraw if Ennis Rakestraw does not work out this season? 100%. He could end up being that replacement because
I forgot about Rake.
I think the vision all along for Dan Campbell was to draft your entire backfield. And that's what he wanted to do. He didn't want to have to bring in DJ Reader. He wanted to have it be Ennis Rakestraw, Ennis Rakestraw, Terrion Arnold, and then get a kid like Keith Abney. Then you got your three guys out there that are all homegrown. You drafted them. It's not players that you had to bring in free agency. And when you can do that, that frees up money that you would be spending on a free agent, and you can pay your own guys with it.
Absolutely. But man, I forgot about Rakestraw. We have a really deep room. Mm-hmm. If everybody stays healthy, and actually knock on real wood, when everybody stays healthy this year, we have a big problem. And it's a great problem to have that we are this deep with this many players that can actually play the game. And, I get it. Rake is entering his third year, and he hasn't done anything. He's been, bogged down by injury. But all it takes is one good season, man. It just takes one good season for him to bounce right back. I still personally feel that he's a little bit light. Not to say that, some of the other players that we have aren't as light, but I don't know. When I watched him on the field, man, I felt like his body type was just too lanky. He's got the requisite, but he's just a little lanky for me. I'd rather see bigger guys in our DB room. All right, so real quick on Skylar Gill-Howard and Tyree West. I am so excited, especially after speaking with Skylar Gill-Howard. So excited to see where he ends up this year. Now, he is one that said definitively, and I think it was on this show, he's excited to play special teams. He hasn't played special teams in a while, and he loves it. So whether that was a little tongue-in-cheek or not, I don't think so. I truly think that this guy just wants to play football. I'm really excited to see his body type and what I think that style of a defensive weapon, yes, I said it, weapon, can be. Someone that can get sideline to sideline, someone that's 285 pounds that can still move like a linebacker, a former linebacker that still has the ball skills as a linebacker. Oh, and he was a running back. So this guy has movement in his body. He has the ability to be something better than what he's ever been yet. And he's coming from a college team that had one of the best defenses in the entire FBS. So, look, the kid can play. He can absolutely play. He's in a crowded room. But if you get him in some sub packages and you're going to utilize his speed, man, watch out, because you start rushing him and you start running some games up through the middle of that defense and you get him free on a guard where he can beat him with speed. I don't care who your quarterback is. They're going to feel Gil Howard a lot this season if he gets the opportunity to do it. And Tyree West, look, I think it's a long shot for Tyree West initially, to crack this roster. But I do like what I've seen so far. And I'm not saying he's not going to make the roster in any capacity. I think he will. I just think for him to have an immediate impact in year one, I need to see more. So where you're not really as sold on Kendrick Law, to a lesser extent, am I really high on Tyree West? I think he's a good player. I see why the Lions brought him in. But as a 7th round defensive lineman, it's going to be tough to make this roster unless somebody, goes down, and I don't want that for anyone. Anyway, those final 2 players, what do you think? And then let's jump into the schedule matter. You're muted, buddy.
Oh, sorry about that. It'll be interesting to see how these guys do if they've never played special teams before or very limited, how they're going to do playing special teams in the NFL. But they better learn that playbook and they better get on it pretty fast. I was looking up who was the most injured team and the least injured teams in the NFL last season. And it would not surprise you to know that the most games missed by players in the NFL last year was 326 by none other than your Detroit Lions.
Yeah, we've been a top 6 most injured team since 2021.
Yes. And then if you look at the least injured team, it was the Las Vegas Raiders with only 94.
Wow.
So that's almost 4 times the amount of players were injured on the Lions that were injured on the Raiders. And the Raiders, they had the number 1 over pick overall. Mm-hmm. And the Detroit Lions, went 9-8 and barely missed the playoffs. So that tells you that the Lions have a really good core of players. It's just their role players and the people on the back end just could not. We just didn't have the people to compete once we had all these injuries. So this year, knock on wood, one of my goals for the Detroit Lions in 2026, and I believe that Brad and Dan both have this goal in mind, and every single person on the Lions team have this goal in mind, to be the least injured team in the NFL, or towards the top of the least injured NFL teams this year. You're going to see some big changes when it comes to how the Lions practice, their preseason, everything. You're already seeing it.
Well, to echo that, I mean, Rod Wood mentioned that in I was listening while I was working on the wall last night. I just kind of let DetroitLions.com just play, and so I was listening back to some of the post draft conversations with Brad Holmes, and then there was one that popped up with Rod Wood. I forget, it might have been the combine, timeline or something. But anyway, he had mentioned that they looked at everything, right, and including how they practice. So as we're fans and media and everyone talking about the Lions maybe practicing too hard, I have been very vocal about, look, I don't think it matters. I think that, you only get 14 padded practices a year. Maybe it matters preseason a little bit more, but look, if your body isn't tested, if your body is not hardened before the season, that's when injuries happen. When your body's soft and you haven't taken big hits, that's when injuries happen. I don't want to see anybody get injured, but I don't want to see Dan really change the identity. But I think to your point, Eric, they did look at it. They did address it. And whether they also mentioned food intake, which I thought was kind of funny because I mentioned that with that Dr. Troha that we had on, are they not getting the right nutrition at times? Or, what are they not doing? Are they not doing enough like yoga type stuff or, plyometrics or whatever, right? Whatever type of, new age exercise, is out there. Do more of that, less weights. Do more stretching, less weights. And I think you'll stay a lot healthier. I wish I could do more stretching and less weights too.
Yeah, well, you've seen it already with no rookie OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
We're not having joint practices with other teams.
Mm-hmm.
They're changing up. They asked for to not have the bye after the Germany game.
They tried.
Yep. So,
what Rod said was they did not want the back-to-back. They didn't want to come back from Germany and then have a Thursday run.
Yeah.
And I think they at least accomplished that, but they didn't get the bye.
Yeah, they had some choices to make, and they made the choice that they made. So they could have had a bye after the Germany game if they pushed for it, but they wanted something else instead.
That's crazy. Well, they wanted the Germany game, They wanted it. They got it. Now let's go finish it. All right, so the schedules matter. Eric, this is something that we've talked about many times.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions went from a fourth place schedule in 2022 to then a midline schedule in 2023. And do you remember what were you, third or second place schedule in 2023? I think we were third.
23, we were third place schedule.
Third place schedule.
We were third place.
Yep. So third place schedule, and we went all the way to the NFC Championship game. The question is, does it really matter what schedule you play? Does it matter if it's a first, second, third, or fourth? Now, you've been very, I guess, very pointed in your attack to the Bears that, hey, and I have been too, you got a first place schedule now. Let's see if you can actually win some games when you're going up against some real teams. Last year, they had a shit sandwich for a schedule, and they were able to get away with a 53% quarterback completion rate to win some games. And I think that this is kind of where the rubber hits the road for the Bears, but to a lesser extent, do I really believe it matters for the Lions? So I'm going to agree with Colin Cowherd, who I'm going to play right now.
Okay, Detroit's got an above-average roster, but it's not the Rams, it's not the Seahawks, it's not the Eagles, it may not be Buffalo, but it's above average. They solved their left tackle issue in the draft. Jared Goff is very good. Go look at who the Detroit Lions face this year. It is made to order. Jets, Saints, Titans, Arizona, Miami. Rebuilding teams, not necessarily great at quarterback. So Cincinnati and Detroit, I think, one with an average roster, one that's above average, but not a great team, Detroit. OC improves, a lot of weak opponents, solved their left tackle issue in the draft. Detroit's going to be a playoff team. And the other thing, again, schedules don't really matter for great teams or awful teams. It doesn't matter who the Jets play or Arizona, and it doesn't really matter who the Rams play or the Seahawks. I mean, if you think about it, the last three NBA dynasties, and to me, a dynasty is 3 titles, all come from the West. Duncan and the Spurs, Shaq and Kobe, and the Golden State dynasty. All come from the much tougher West. The SEC dominated college football for 20 years, toughest schedules easily, and yet they kept producing 5 out of 6 years, the national champion. Right now, the Big Ten has the best college football conference top to bottom, and they've won 3 straight natties. It's that great and awful aren't affected by schedules. They're not. It's slightly above, slightly below, or average schedules.
I about puked in my mouth. Now, I agree on the schedule thing. I do. And I apologize, my pen is running out of ink. But I about puked in my mouth when he said above average for the Lions. And then at the bottom, you probably can't read that. Not a great team. What the F, Colin Cowherd? Because I think I think that you contradicted yourself a little bit, Mr. Cowherd. because you said that the Lions are above average. They're not great. They're not good. They're above average. And then you said that they're not a great team. But in the same breath, you said schedules don't matter for great teams or crap teams, right? Or bad teams. So how the hell does that fit for the Lions then? Because what he just said doesn't make any sense to me. But I do agree where he said schedule doesn't matter if you're a bad team or a great team. Well, let me explain. If you're a great team, which, by the way, he said that we're not the Rams, we're not the Seahawks. What? Is there anyone out there that has a better roster than the Lions? I don't think so. Or do the Rams and the Seahawks have that much better of a roster? Not after, who the Seahawks just lost. They got Zach Charbonnet with a bum leg. So let me explain on what I'm rolling with here. The Lions are a great team. They have one of the best rosters in the league. I don't care who they play. I really don't. If we're at our best and we're healthy and they're at their best and they're healthy, Lions are going to win. They're going to win 9 out of 10 times. They're going to suffer a couple of losses a year, playing a number 1 schedule this year if they had it. The fact that we have the 4th place schedule, well, we better murder everybody. Like, we should. And I think that is where the Lions fandom is today. Oh, we won by 17. Why wasn't it 30? Like, that's what's in our heads. Why didn't we win by 30? Oh, we scored 30. Why wasn't it 50? Like, that's how arrogant we are as Lions fans now. And I agree. We have a hell of a roster. But to say that we're above average and that we're not a great team, but then say that the schedule doesn't matter for us, that doesn't make any sense. You're either a great team or you're not. I think the Lions are a great team, and I don't care who they play. But I'll say this. The Bears, on the other hand, not a great team. You haven't spent any real money on a quarterback, and you're telling me that your roster is not better than the Lions. Make that make sense, because that doesn't make any sense. You went from a really solid, if not great, offensive line last year to now a giant question mark for your offensive line. So I think that the Bears are going to run into one this year, and I think it's going to be pretty tough on them. It doesn't mean that they're going to completely fall out of contention, but I think they're going to have a pretty rough season. Eric, does it really matter? I know that you've been somewhat excited about having a 4th place schedule because that means that the Lions should be able to go in and beat a lot of teams this year. But had we had a 1st place schedule this year with the same roster, how much different do you think it would be at the end of the year from a win-loss perspective?
Well, technically, it would be a 3-game swing because when you're talking about a 1st or a 3rd place schedule, you're playing 3 different games. Everyone else is basically the same, but you're playing 3 4th place teams from other divisions. So let's take the Chicago Bears into account for last year.
Mm-hmm.
So last year, the Chicago Bears got to play, if I can get my computer to bring it up here, they got to play the Las Vegas Raiders in week 4. And they barely won on a last-second field goal, 25-24 with a miracle. And then they got to play the New Orleans Saints, and they handily won that game 26-14. Huge win, right? They won by 12 points. And then they played the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers destroyed the Chicago Bears in week 17. And the Chicago Bears played a 4th place schedule. So 2 out of their 3 games they won. And a lot of their teams, they did not beat handily last year. And I have an interesting stat for everyone about the Chicago Bears and their 4th place schedule. The Chicago Bears, with their 4th place schedule, had a point differential of 26 points. So they scored 26 more points than their opponents. Now, the Lions, they went 9-8, and they played a 1st place schedule after going 15-2 in 2025. or 24, excuse me. They had a 68 point differential. So the Lions, when they were winning last year, were much more convincing wins than what the Bears had with their fourth place schedule. The Bears also, like the Green Bay Packers lost their last 5 games heading into the end of the season to go into the playoffs. The Bears also did something similar. They lost their last 2 games. They lost week 17 to the San Francisco 49ers, part of their fourth place schedule. And then they lost to the Detroit Lions to end the season on a 2-game losing streak and backing into the playoffs. So the fourth place schedule can help and it can hinder all at the same time. For having a fourth place schedule, the Bears really didn't do anything exceptional other than they won 2 out of the 3 games that were different from everyone else in the division last year. So if you give the Lions 2 games where they're going to win and their opponents, the Bears and the Packers, are probably going to lose those games, playing teams like the Rams or the Seahawks this year, or the Eagles, those are teams that we don't play this year. That could give the Lions a huge advantage playing a fourth place schedule where we're playing the Cardinals, the Titans, and the Jets. So it could be, I think the fourth place schedule could really help us in the standings this year.
I think it can, yes. I think it could. But what I'm saying is I don't know if you gave me an answer because I had to run away for a sec. If we are playing a first place schedule versus our fourth place schedule, I think that you said that we were going to be 13-4 this year in the way early mock.
Yeah, 13 or 14.
Yeah, I think it was 13, and I think I was 14 or 13. It was one of the two.
Yeah.
Does that change if it's a first place schedule?
Yeah, it's probably 11 and 6.
I don't think so. I think that you have just as big of an opportunity to lose a game against one of these teams, that is the fourth place schedule, because you have a lot of roster turnover. You have 24 new coaches that the Lions are going to play this year. When you factor in the NFC North teams twice, it's actually 22 coaches overall. But I think there's more of an opportunity to lose against a team that you haven't really seen because it's a new team. There's new personnel. There's new coaching. There's new offensive, defensive coordinators for a lot of these teams. I think that is easier to lose to than a team that you've known or a team that hasn't had any changeover. So I would agree with Colin from that perspective. Whether it's first or fourth place, it doesn't really matter. And the reason why is in 2023, we had a first place schedule, right? Coming off of 23 and 24. And we went 15-2 that year?
And then 8 and 9. Or 9 and 8, excuse me.
Right. After all the injuries, we still went 15-2 in a first place schedule.
Yep.
And then even last year with the first place schedule, and again, the most injured team in the league, we still finished 9 and 8. But
yeah.
All right, Eric, I know you got to run.
Yeah, I got to run because the shop's opening right now.
All right, buddy. Have a good day. Good to see you back. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, right?
See you next Tuesday.
All right, man. You have a good day. I'm going to stay on for just a few more minutes. I didn't plan on doing that today, but I really wanted to get to something. Let me see if I can fix that. Hold on. We'll just... There we go. I wanted to get to this last couple of things here. So I have about a 10, 12 minute interview of Brad Holmes that I wanted to play. Let me get it lined up here real quick. All right. So there's about a 10, 12-minute interview of Brad Holmes, and then I wanted to discuss it for just a few moments. He was on the Good Morning Football show over the last couple of days. Might have been yesterday, might have been the day before. I don't remember. But anyway, let's listen to that. And then when we come back, I want to go through a couple of points on pretty much the last 5 years, last 5 seasons. What were the most important points? So start thinking about them. I have like a top 21 list. What were the most important points from 21 through 25, a couple in each year, that really made the significant difference for who the Lions were, who they were becoming, and who they are now? But first, let's kick it over to Good Morning Football and Brad Holmes, which, by the way, I love the background. So I didn't know his office looked like that. It looks like it's an African safari. You can tell just by the tree. That is an African tree. And then that giant lion head. Do you guys see that big red dot there in the middle? That is a fire alarm. Like, couldn't you have found a better way? Maybe move the fire alarm? I don't know. But anyway, awesome background. It was one of the topics of discussion early on this show. I guess Brad Holmes watches, I don't know, something on National Geographic that he watches in the morning. But anyway, let's listen to Brad Holmes here on Good Morning Football.
We got ourselves an architect, specifically the architect behind one of the NFL's most complete and important turnarounds of this generation, a back-to-back executive of the year. He is one of the gentlemen who has made the entire city of Detroit, Michigan believe in their team. Please welcome Detroit Lions Executive Vice President and General Manager Brad Holmes. What's up, Brad? How are we doing?
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me on.
We're doing so great. I know that so much of what you guys do in Detroit is just about attitude and toughness. And oh my God, the background you have, Brad. You're a lion. You have fire. I know I'm talking to the Detroit bleeping Lions. Tell us about that. My God.
Yeah, when I first got here, the walls were pretty bare and blank. And so we have plenty of Lions logos on the walls. But I would say a long time ago, me and my wife, we used to watch this show on Animal Planet. I think it was Big Cat Diary. It used to come on at 5 o'clock in the morning. And we were just got addicted to it. We were just watching every morning. And then, so I was already all in Lions already. And so it's just very fitting that when I got here to Detroit, I was like, look, I'm not putting up logos. I'm putting up the real thing. So it's been pretty cool.
Wow. I think they call that the circle of life, and the Lions are full of it right now. You know, my man. I love you and Lisa just watching Big Cat Diary at 5 in the morning. We can do a whole interview about that. But, Brad, listen up. You guys, all right, so you took the Lions to go to the title game a couple of years ago. It's just an amazing season. I know last year it did not end the way you wanted it to, but where are we right now? It's May of 2026. Where do we feel about the Lions, the roster, and the goals moving forward? Give us a state of the nation.
Yeah, we knew we had a lot of work to do, both from a roster standpoint, just some internal things that, we were determined that's a bad taste in your mouth when you feel like you're trending and you're heading in the right direction, although we never got to where we really wanted to get to, but we got close. And but to not be in it, that was a bad taste. So we're like, okay, look, let's make sure that we're not just being, the definition of insanity and keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we took a long, hard look at a lot of things. We made some tweaks and adjustments, but we really feel good about the things that we're able to do from a roster standpoint through free agency and the draft. And look, no one has a crystal ball, but I will say that this is probably the deepest that we've been, probably on both sides of the line of scrimmage. We were able to get younger on the offensive line. We got a lot of good depth in the secondary and on the defense as a whole. So with what we already had established on offense, we feel really, really good about where we're at right now.
Brad, you drafted one of my favorite offensive linemen come out of the draft this year in Blake Miller. I watched him at Clemson at right tackle. If I could curse on air, I would just pepper the show with how kick-ass this dude was. I mean, you're talking about athletic, range, mechanics, solid footwork, finishes at second level. I loved everything about this kid. And when you guys drafted him, I was salty because I wanted him to fall to the Steelers, right? I was like, man, this is a Steeler type guy, all right? But what I love what you guys have been able to do is you guys know your guy, right? You guys have a mold. You guys have it's a Dan Campbell type of guy. He's definitely a Dan Campbell type of guy. He's a Lion. How good is this fit? What's the projection, and will he be an instant impact, a plug and play type of guy right away for you guys?
Yeah, in terms of from just his makeup and intangibles, he fits us like a glove. You're talking about a guy that rarely even missed a practice, and when he did, he didn't feel great about it, and he didn't feel great about it because he felt like he was letting his teammates down, and so. Those are the type of guys that we want in our locker room. But just Blake, and I think everybody talks about how much the starts and how long he's played, and they say, well, he's got a high floor and he's a safe player. But what was very unique about him is that we've been watching him so long that he's gotten better every single year. So I feel like those are those unique guys that, they do have a stable floor coming in, but there's no stopping just kind of his upside and growth because he is a good athlete. He's tough. He's smart. He's big. He's long. He's instinctive. He's gritty. He's physical in the run game. So he just checked all the boxes. And then when you get into, like I was saying before, just his intangibles, his makeup, what he believes in, he's just like, this guy's a lion. So we were thrilled to land him. And, in terms of where he's how much impact, look, he just needs to keep going on the trajectory that he's been going on in terms of just continue to work on his game, continue to get better. Just like him or any other player that we've drafted in any other round or any undrafted free agent, he's going to have to compete. Nothing is given around here. So I know he got drafted in the first round, but, we did a lot of work on the offensive line in free agency as well. So he's got to go out and earn a job, but we like his work ethic and everything. I know he's going to do everything in his power to do that.
Mr. Holmes, coming from the WWE world, I know a thing or two about monikers, but when it comes to the draft room, the Detroit Lions, there was a moniker tossed around, the Lone Wolf. Can you give us, it's a great moniker, by the way, can you give us a little insight about what that means and what that culture means around the Lone Wolf?
Yeah, that's a good moniker. I didn't even know you had that. But yeah, look, coming up in the scouting world, I've always been big on, you got to see what your eyes see, and you got to speak what your eyes see, and only what your eyes see. And sometimes it's hard being the lone wolf because I think as human beings, we like to be, part of the tribe, and we feel like we're together, and, disagreement or being on an island is not comfortable. But that's what's preached around here is like, be the lone wolf. I got one on my ledge right there. Just it's kind of all over this place, but I just have a lot of respect for someone being able to step out and saying what they truly feel. And really, that's what you need. Like, if everybody's group thinking and scared to detach themselves from part of the pride, then I think you're going to get your process wrong. You're going to get players wrong. So, so I just always preach that. Look, it's okay to be the lone wolf. I don't want a bunch of just yes in agreement when it's all aligned and everybody sees the same. That's great. But, I want if everybody's yes, 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 yes. And then that one person's like, I don't know. Well, why? Yeah. And it's going to make me want to look back and understand and take a deeper look into why he was a no. And you'll learn about that. And that's what our process has been. It's worked so far.
There's a lone wolf, and then there's a lead dog. Jahmyr Gibbs. A couple weeks ago, I said on this show that I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to take a run at MVP this year. And I'm not talking about the Lions. I'm talking about the league. I believe in him that much. Brett, nobody's believed in him more than you. I remember very well you drafted him 12th overall in 2023. It raised some eyebrows at the time. Why would you spend that high of a pick on a running back, on and on and on? What do you remember about that? And then more importantly, when was the moment you were like, oh, yeah, this is the guy we thought he was?
Oh, man, it's been a couple of months. Well, look, at the moment, I think I've told the story before. There was so many times where I was driving into work before that draft, and I just could not stop envisioning Jahmyr Gibbs in a Lions uniform. And so when that came to fruition, like it was just the burst of emotions of this being thrilled and happy and excited to get this player, because I truly thought that he was a special player, a very unique player when he came out. So that was when that was when that burst of emotions happened. But look, I think it was really, I think the opening game, I think we were Thursday night. It was the opener versus KC, I think, where he hadn't really gotten down all the nuances of being a running back in the NFL in terms of, slowing yourself down and patience, because he's such an explosive runner. But he made some runs in that game that I was like, okay, it's coming. And then I want to say it was probably the next year where I think he broke an 80 or 90 yarder. I think it was versus the Titans. And that was when, you saw those kind of long runs that he broke. And I was like, okay, it's here. So just really excited. And again, just like we talk about makeup, it's not just, his ability. He's a great kid, and he's got good football character.
He's fantastic, and you got good football character too. This is one of the most important GMs in all of the league. Brad Holmes just adding new pages every single day to his Big Cat Diary. We love you joining us. We love you having you. Give a big forearm blast to our guy Dan Campbell for us, man. You're the best, Brad.
Will do. Got you.
There they are. Hell yeah, man. Let's go win a Super Bowl. I love it, Brad. Thanks for joining us. You're the man.
Damn right, Brad Holmes is the man. He's done such an excellent job with this team. Entering his 6th season as a Lions GM. And I got to say, man, the time has just flown by. Even when I started doing this in 2023, I just had my 3-year anniversary in January of creating my first YouTube channel. I didn't really start on YouTube until October of 23. So this October will be my 3rd full year really on YouTube. So time has really just flown by. I wanted to go through that earlier. I thought it would help kind of verify or solidify some of the talking points that I was mentioning earlier. One, Blake Miller and the impact that he's going to have in year 1. Brad's very simple with it. He just says, he's gotten better every year since they started watching Blake. And there's no reason why that's not going to continue now. And then, he just has to come in and compete. Like, there's nothing handed to this guy. There's nothing handed to any player. They need to come in and compete. Again, is it GM speak? Maybe. Do we really see Blake Miller not being the starter on day 1? Probably not. But I also am a firm believer in that the leash has been tightened a little bit. I think that Brad and Dan are entering this season kind of eyes wide open. And it's not sticking to the same old. And matter of fact, he mentions that, right? Brad mentions that. We're not doing the same thing every year just on rerun, not on repetition. It's the definition of insanity, where if you do the same thing over and over and over and you get the same output, well, you're insane. Why would you do the same thing over and over and over and over again if you're not getting a different output, right? If you're not getting what you expected to get out of it. Simply said, you want to win a Super Bowl. But if every year you have the same offseason plan, the same drafting plan, the same type of training camp, and it doesn't lead to a Super Bowl, why wouldn't you change it up? You did the same thing for a few years, probably 2 seasons, 24, 25, and you kind of got away from 23 and really 2022. They kind of put the Lions back on the map. So now it's time to change and evolve a little bit more. And that's exactly what the Lions are doing. But as far as Blake Miller is concerned, the Lions did a lot of free agency work. They feel very comfortable in the free agents that they brought in. They feel very comfortable with the players that they have on this roster. And I got to tell you, man, look, I haven't seen a roster like this for the Lions in a while where, well, I shouldn't say a while. 2024 was pretty loaded. But even then, the back end of the Lions' offensive line was not anywhere near as good as it was or is now, right? Our backups back then, Colby Sorsdahl, Coyote Owasika. That might have been Kingsley Eguakun's first season or second season. Not anywhere near, Dan Skipper, which now Dan is a coach for the Lions, which is phenomenal. And now you've added players like Giovanni Manu, special athlete. Maybe he has it all together this year. Maybe he doesn't. Coming off a knee injury. We'll see. Could he be the next, Dan Skipper? I think someone mentioned that in the chat a little bit earlier. I've kind of felt that way too. Like he's going to be a hell of a swing tackle, someone that can move. He's got giant mitts. Maybe they throw him a ball. Who knows? I don't think anyone's going to expect that from Giovanni Manu. But now you've had guys like Juice Scruggs, right? Starter, former what, second or first round pick? I think he was a former. Was he second or first round pick? No, I can't remember. I think he was a first round pick, wasn't he? Memory's escaping me. Hold on. I have to look that one up. Have to. Can't remember. I think he was a former first. Second round pick. There we go. Tail end of the second round. Pick 31. So damn near a third round pick. So you bring in a guy like Juice Scruggs, who's going to compete not only at guard, but he can also play some center. Not that Cade Mays, shouldn't be the day one starter. He absolutely will be. But I see where Juice Scruggs is going to absolutely compete for an open guard position. Christian Mahogany, Miles Frazier. I mean, guys, fifth, sixth round picks that have already started in the NFL. And Mahogany's played pretty well when he's healthy. Now you got a Juice Scruggs behind you that's itching to play, wants to play. Larry Borum can play anywhere up and down the line except center. I see him, as a really good guard if he wants to be. But I would say that he's going to be competing for one of those outside tackle positions. And if he ends up being second fiddle, that's a damn good player that we have in the slot. In the slot there behind, whether it's Penei Sewell or Blake Miller. Giovanni Manu, like I said earlier, another really good football player that just has some things to figure out functionally, right? He has to figure out the offense. He has to figure out how to play in the NFL. And he just hasn't had a ton of time on task, on the field doing that. That knee injury kind of sidelined him a little bit. So this is his year to kind of shit or get off the pot too. But it's a really deep offensive line. I guess is where I'm going with that. Seth McLaughlin. It should have been a first round pick. Or a third round pick. And it should have been the first center taken off the board. Unfortunately, he had a major injury, but he was definitely the best center coming out of the draft or coming out of college into the draft in 2024. 2024. So we have him on the roster. We legit have 3, if not 4 centers on this team. Once was a need, is now, just full of players that are going to compete. Tate Ratledge, his second year is going to be phenomenal. Not only from a body composition and transformation standpoint, but from a knowledge standpoint and execution standpoint, someone that is going to feel a lot more comfortable in their skin in their second season. So I see guys that are only going to level up, and now Penei Sewell, who has been the bona fide leader of this offense, definitely is now that Taylor Decker is out of the picture. The Lions also got a lot younger, and you heard Brad mention that too. They got a lot younger, especially on the offensive line. It's not so much about getting younger as I would say that it is Taylor Decker was a lot to manage in a bad way. He was as good as you want him to be when he's healthy. He's even better as a leader and someone to model your game after. Hell of a football player, hell of a person, individual, as a man, teammate. Locker room guy. He's exactly what you want. But unfortunately, when you are battling a 10-year career in the NFL, you are going to have a lot of nicks and cuts and bumps and bruises and aches and pains. And unfortunately, that really requires a lot of downtime. You don't want downtime. You want your players playing. You want them healthy. You want them out there playing to the best of their ability. You want them out there creating the continuity with the rest of the players. He was a vet, so there was a lot more that he could do with less rep time because he understood it, because he's extremely smart. Again, unfortunately, those injuries kept him off the field. They kept him, off the practice field and into the training room. That's where the Lions got younger. It wasn't so much age, it was injuries, right? Keeping you in the training room versus on the practice field. That's what the Lions did this year, and they did such a good job at managing the loss of Taylor Decker didn't go as well as I think a lot of us had hoped. But I think, when this is all said and done, Taylor will be back, if not just to retire as a Lion, he'll be back. What else did he say? Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs. Asked, when did you know that Jahmyr was Jahmyr, right? When did you know that this guy was special and that, the guy that you thought you drafted was the guy you actually drafted? And I don't know if it took me all the way to the Titans game in 2024, but that wasn't an 80, 90 yarder. I want to say that was closer to a 70 or 68 yarder in that game. It was a hell of a run. And if that solidified it for Brad Holmes, great. I saw flashes in 2023 of who Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be. I saw flashes before that. Watching his film and going through everything in 2023 prior to the draft, Jahmyr was my guy. I mean, he was the guy that I picked over Bijan Robinson, and I expected, I expected that pick, and I called the trade from 6 to 12 with Arizona. I was a little bit shocked that they didn't stick the pick there with Jahmyr Gibbs. Like that is a risk I don't know that you take, but they did, and they ended up better for it. And then we have the lone wolf statement. And this is a big statement for me personally, because of what I do. And kind of, I view it as maybe the way that I'm seen by others, or maybe it's just this, I don't know, maybe it's a badge of honor that I really wear. When you talk about being a lone wolf in someone that is pushing against the fray, right? You're pushing against the norm. You're not a yes man. And that's the one thing on this show. One thing about me is I'm not a yes man. I never will be, never have been, not going to happen. And I don't expect anybody that ever comes on this show as a guest, as Eric's a co-host, never once asked to be a yes man. The point that I'm going to make right here is I know I push against mainstream media. I want things to be better in Detroit. I want to see less bullcrap and less clickbait. The fact that anyone would ever say that I ever do clickbait, come on, let's be real here. There's not one thing that I don't put out there. If I say something's happening, it's about 99% sure it's probably going to happen. And my receipts speak for that, right? I don't put out clickbait, unlike other channels that do every single morning, afternoon, and evening. That's not me. But I do push, and I push because there's so much toxic media out there that the vision of the Detroit Lions was Carlos Monarrez. Okay, we'll just use his name. Every Lions fan understands who Carlos Monarrez is. I don't even see any of his stuff anymore. I never even hear him really at any of the press conferences or anything. But he's always been someone that has always talked about the Lions in a negative light, or used to. I haven't read his stuff in over 2 years now, so I really don't know what he's saying now. But people like that are always negative, always have it an angle to something, and driving clicks versus driving information. I want to drive information. I want to turn the ship around. I wanted to see the Lions become a team that you wanted to talk about, not a team that you hid away, tucked yourself into a corner and were, shy about the fact that you were a Lions fan. I don't think anyone's shy anymore, but there's still so much toxic media, talking all this crap about Dan and Brad and everything else. And whether it's Bargain Brad, this, or Dollar General Brad that, or, whatever, right? I think it's all BS. I know it's all BS, but now there's something that we don't have to talk about anymore, and that's the edge position. I don't know why people still drive the edge position, even though we have multiple edge rushers on this team now. But they still do, and I don't understand it. So when I push against the fray, it's because I've always wanted to see the Lions talked about in a good light. And so when I call BS, I'm calling BS because I'm calling BS. There's a difference between normal general disagreements, which is what I tend to have with people. They take it personally. They go a different direction with it. If you can't handle someone disagreeing with you, you're in the wrong business. If you can't handle someone calling you out for your bullshit, you're in the wrong business. Matter of fact, you probably shouldn't put out the lies about Max Crosby and everything else in the beginning, or any of the other clickbait that's out there. Whole point is, I'm a lone wolf. Always have been. I've always been an individual that tries to do things my way, and then I also take, the temperature of the room and try to figure out what it is that people really want to hear. And what I've heard for 3 years is that y'all want the truth, honesty, and transparency about your team. And that's what I'm going to continue to provide. I'm not going to provide you a BS. I've made a lot of good relationships now over the last 3 seasons of taking this from a podutherapy after cancer to now credentialed media access and still working our way into becoming a full-fledged media network. It takes a significant investment, over $500,000 to do it. So it's not something that you just walk right into and do. It takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes the right people in building a team. So it's not about not investing the money. It's about having all of the foundation built before you do it. Just like the Lions. They had to build the foundation. It took them 3 years to build a foundation before they went to an NFC championship game. And we've gone to the playoffs one other time. And last year we fell off. So I don't want to fall off. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way. I don't ever want to fall backwards. I want to continue to rumble forward. So I'm going to continue to be a lone wolf. I'm going to continue to push. And people don't like it. That's fine. I don't work for you. I work for me. And if you want to talk your crap, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. Just make sure it's not an opinion presented as a legal fact, because that's where people get in trouble. And that's what you guys are going to find out probably today, just how serious I am about the things that I say and the things that I'm going to do. And if people want to continue to tug at me and pull me down or try to pull me down and make up a bunch of lies, I'm coming for you. Right? But I'm coming for you the right way, the legal way, the way that it should be done. Anyway, I'm glad to be back. I'll be back on tomorrow. I still got a lot of projects around the house. So there's going to be some time that I will take back for myself a little bit. And the goal is really for me to get more videos done. And hopefully this time that I do take for myself will allot for that, because I do got to get a lot more videos out. That's what YouTube wants. And so when I do take days off, that is the goal. Also, we'll be starting the podcast, like truly starting the podcast and get that rolling. So if I am off, there will always be, the 30-minute podcast or however long I do it, that'll be loaded up that day so that you guys can at least jump in and chit chat in the chat or whatever, you'd like to do. I know a lot of this is the chat, man. You guys, you hang out, you have fun, and you all talk. So I'll premiere them so that way you have a chat open, and then the other channel that I don't really use, I've got to resurrect it to do something with it. And then I'm going to be doing other content as well. So Lions is not the only content I will be doing. I'm going to start, dipping into some of the other things that I'm passionate about. And so maybe you'll see me out there. I'm not even going to tell you where it is. Maybe you'll see it. Maybe you won't. I don't know. We'll find out what hits your algorithm. But anyway, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Hope you all had a wonderful Memorial weekend, hanging out with family, friends, whatever you're doing. And hopefully everyone's safe today without a headache. I know I don't get headaches anymore from those weekends. Haven't for many, 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 many years. But that's it, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you guys in the next one. Probably go Detroit Lions. And please, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget about DetroitFootballJournal.com. I didn't forget about it. Just been super busy. I'll start getting more content put up there as well. And giveaways are going to be rolling again here pretty soon, as well as I have a couple of giveaways that I have to give away. I got a Tesla jersey, and I got an Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey that have to be given away. So those names will get pulled, and then we'll give those away this week. And then if you're owed coffee, I had a hell of a 2 weeks. Coffee's a little bit late. Coffee will go out this week as well. And then we should be settled up. I'll probably throw an extra bag in there just to get you guys an extra month for free. Well, you kind of paid for it, but I'll throw some extra stuff in there anyway. All right. Adios. We'll see you guys tomorrow and every day after that. Go in pride. Go Detroit Lions. Subscribe, like, do the thing. Hype it up when you're all done, and we'll catch you in the next one. Adios.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down.